But this strange demand on the commoners of Britain and its realm is expected to go something like this.
I swear that I will pay true allegiance to your majesty
and to your heirs and successors,
according to the law.
So help me God.
Yes, His Majesty, the defender of all that is good, apparently. Good grief. Look, go ahead if you like, I guess. Do it. It won't harm anyone. But the Australian Republican movement is demanding that our Prime Minister, who'll be there in London, they're demanding that the PM keeps stum, doesn't move his lips, that Anthony Albanese does not pledge allegiance, which puts him in a pretty awkward spot by now, I reckon. Let's go to Alessandro Rosini from the Australian Monarchist League. Good to talk to you, Alessandro. First up, this call from the Republicans that our Prime Minister should not pledge allegiance, it's kind of redundant, isn't it, given that every politician has made that pledge when they're sworn into Parliament?
Well, Chris, it is redundant, and it's redundant for a few reasons. The first is because the pledge that Anthony Albanese and other politicians have made is not only to the King, but through the King to the Australian people. But I would also say if the Prime Minister has any integrity, he will honour the vote of the 1999 referendum and the democratic will of the Australian people, who overwhelmingly voted in favour of the monarchy, and he will make that pledge of commitment. Now, the pledge isn't just to the King, but it's also to the values of our modern system of constitutional monarchy, which are charity, service before self, duty to others, and I think that's what the Prime Minister should do.
Well, most Australians, when the national anthem's on, just sort of mumble and hardly move their lips. We're not really into all that demonstrative patriotism. But when you're the Prime Minister, you've got to do it. And yeah, I don't see how he can skip this this Pledge of Allegiance. It's what you have to do when you sign up to be a politician in this country. We saw, in fact, Lydia Thorpe try and thumb her nose at that, and you can't and shouldn't do it. So I would have thought that Anthony Albanese crossed that bridge a long time ago. But surely monarchists don't expect the rest of us, mainstream Aussies, sitting at home or watching at the pub, to pledge allegiance to the King. I'm telling you, I'm not doing it, and surely the majority of Australians would not be interested in pledging allegiance to a British King.
Well, firstly, Chris, he is obviously the King of Australia as well. But I would add that we're not expecting anyone to do it. It's entirely optional. It was an invitation and it's certainly not compulsory. I will also add that it is a two-way street. The King will promise on the day of his coronation for the rest of his life, like his late mother did, to serve the people of Australia with respect to our laws, our tradition and our culture. So it is a two-way street. It's not all Australians pledging themselves to the King and, as I said, to the values of our modern system of constitutional monarchy, but it's also the King pledging himself for the rest of his life to Australians.
Except when the Ashes are on this year. I'm presuming he'll be barracking for the Poms, not for us. I don't think he can barrack for both sides. Alessandro, tell me, you'll be watching the coronation, no doubt. Will you make the pledge? Will you actually say it out loud yourself?
Well, I'll be attending an event in Melbourne, a sold-out event which comprises of both young monarchists and older monarchists. And the reason why I'll be making the pledge is because, to me, our modern system of constitutional monarchy represents community, service before self and duty to others. I think those are ideals that we can all live by, and for that reason, and because of what the King represents, his leadership, his gentle leadership, I'll be making that pledge, and also because of the ideals of our system of constitutional monarchy.
Well, what a fascinating event, a big gathering of monarchists in Melbourne for the coronation on Saturday night. I hope you've got some Sky News cameras there, Alessandro. That'll be quite newsworthy, and I hope you have a fantastic night. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Chris.
Alessandro Rosini there, a young Australian monarchist with the Australian Monarchist League. Don't forget, you can watch all the action here on Sky News on Saturday night. I might be flicking over to the footy, but that's just my personal taste, OK? You're into this, watch it here and make the allegiance, pledge your allegiance if you see fit.